Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are recording Wednesday night, the traditional No Name Music Cast recording night. We have tomorrow off work, so, a little bit later, a little bit loose and free. You know how it is.
We had a lot to say before we press record, so it might be an interesting episode.
Absolutely. Well, as we start the episode, I just have a few music news items for you. So the very first item I have was a little bit of sad news that came out today, and it was about Ann Wilson of the band Heart. Now, they were about to start or at least reconvene their North American leg of their Heart's Royal Flush Tour. And unfortunately, she's had a cancer diagnosis.
No.
And her doctors have advised her not to perform as she's going to undergo some chemotherapy. Now, apparently they've removed something from her, which apparently was cancerous, though it's looking good. And apparently the chemotherapy is a preventative step. But unfortunately, the tour has been cancelled. But, her health and welfare is more important than rock and roll at the end of the day.
I mean, yes. I feel like she's one of those people that she can afford really good health care. It'll probably come out well, but I'm glad she's taking the time that she needs.
Absolutely. And I was surprised that she was 74.
Yeah. I don't know what I would have thought, but I wouldn't have put 74 on it.
No, I think Ann and Nancy Wilson, I'd put them at about 52 or something. I don't know. But I mean, they were big in the 80s. So, I mean, it probably makes sense. I don't know.
Well, the 80s only happened 15 years ago, Tim. So I don't know what you're talking about.
That is very true. She did say on the social media, she said, "Thank you for all your support. This is merely a pause. I've got a lot more to sing."
Fair enough. Well, I hope that she gets better and we get to see her next year.
Absolutely, 100%. And the other music news item I have is about Sammy Hagar. Now, a couple of things about Sammy Hagar. I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last episode, but every year he puts on a birthday bash in South America.
He definitely did.
Yeah, and I've got tickets for the Vegas wing of that in October, so that's going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, for his birthday bashes, it's like Sammy in the Wabberitas or Sammy in his solo band, and it's not this new Van Halen inspired tour that's coming out. But yesterday, Sammy on Instagram went live for 3 or 4 of the songs for their sort of last rehearsal before the tour type thing. So it's him and Michael Anthony, who both used to be in Van Halen, Jason Bonham, who's John Bonham from Led Zeppelin's son, and Joe Satriani on guitar. Now, there had been some criticism of Joe Satriani because they did a performance on Howard Stern 6 months or so ago, and they played, I think, 1 or 2 Van Halen songs, and it sounded like Joe Satriani doing a cover of Van Halen songs. And I think Howard
Stern... That's what it was, right?
Yeah. And then Howard Stern says, "Oh, do you know how to play Eruption? Or do you know how to play whatever?" And he sort of fumbled his way through it, and he couldn't play it. And he said, "I'll be honest," he said, "we have not practiced yet. We have not rehearsed. I have not dissected the songs. I haven't got my gear set up for this. This is just a promo thing we came on today, and I haven't done it." And like all the guitar community going, "Oh, Satriani, he can do Satriani, but he can't do anyone else. He can't be Eddie Van Halen, yada, yada, yada." Anyway, roll forward to yesterday. So my phone kept bleeping that Sammy Hagar was going live. And
of course it did, Tim.
He performed Pound Cake. He performed Why Can't This Be Love? He performed a David Lee Roth era song. Of Van Halen, because of course you do. And then I think he did Heavy Metal, which is a Montrose song. And he played the song 5150 as well, which is a Van Halen song. And it doesn't sound exactly like Eddie Van Halen, obviously, because it's not Eddie Van Halen playing it. But he's got the tone. It's never going to be. No, but he's got the tone. He's got the technique. He's got the attack. It just, it's everything you want it to be. And I was sitting there with a smile on my face going, yes, yes.
I love that. And the thing about it is we know it's not Eddie Van Halen, Tim. It doesn't have to be.
Of course.
Like, it's silly. I feel like sometimes pretentiousness around music is one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of people out there that can do an impersonation of Eddie Van Halen
Yeah.
and have studied him. But what Satriani has is, he's a well-schooled guitar player, and he's made changes with his rig. He's using slightly different guitars and pedals and things like that. And he said he really had
He
to
actually
rethink.
prepared.
Yeah, really had to think how he was going to approach it. And there are some Satrianiism still in it. But I said, when I was listening to 5150 yesterday, the song, it's just like, this is amazing.
Fair enough. I mean, I love that, Tim. And your advice to people is to go listen, I'm guessing.
Well, he only published a couple of them to Instagram because they were only live. And
Yeah.
I've gone back to try and find them, and I can't find them. He only posts a couple, but
Dang it.
yeah, the one of 5150 is not up, unfortunately. And Why Can't This Be Love is not up. So
Well,
I don't
then-
know.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know whether his people limited what could be saved or whether he just didn't hit save at the end. I don't know.
Well, now you need to take advice from Tim, and you should always have an alert on your phone when Sammy Hagar goes live in general, like at all times, really.
Yeah,
That's what I got from this statement, Tim, is you get an alert when he goes live.
Yeah, I mean, the people I follow on Instagram, I have a little alert that flashes up on the phone when they post.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I will say, Brian May,
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, he may be a genius, but he posts things to Instagram and then deletes it, redoes it, deletes it, and redoes it about 4 times.
I've done that before, too. Me and Brian May are very similar. That's the only thing we're similar at, Tim. I'm not an astrophysicist, but I do post and then sometimes notice there's a typo and delete.
There we are. Okay. Well, that's all the music news I have. What do you have for us?
All right, so I will start with music news, and this is just something very small, and then I have a very funny story to tell, mostly to put my twin sister on the spot, and she's probably going to hate me for it, but that's okay, not related. Anyway, so my music news is Willie Nelson had recently canceled 7 shows due to illness. They haven't specified which illness, and give in perspective, Willie Nelson's 91, Tim. 91 years old. Well, he is now set to perform tomorrow for the first time. And they said he is in good health and he will be in Camden, New Jersey tomorrow.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now, I've heard reports of Willie Nelson where, like I said, he's 91. Put this into context, he's 91. But I've heard things about when he's been playing over the last few years, he'll come out, play 5 or 6 songs, and then leave the stage for half an hour. His band carry on playing other music, and then he comes back and then plays the same 5 songs again, and nobody cares.
The thing I can get from him is he's not. So what's interesting about Willie Nelson is, and I'm going to say this is be controversial, he really doesn't have that many hits, Tim. There's only a handful of them anyway, and in some way he knows that.
That's true.
And I appreciate it. Is there really that many Willie Nelson songs you know off the top of your head? You don't. He's an icon because he has the it factor, right? Like he's very interesting. We all know he's a stoner. He's very like a liberal, like fun guy. And he did all this stuff for Farm Aid. But on music surface, the man has like 5 songs. Tops.
Yeah. Unless you're a country music super fan or a Willie Nelson super fan.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure there's but for the average Joe, he's got like 5 songs. The man plays his 5 songs. He goes backstage, has a few smokes, Tim, comes back, plays the 5 songs again, and that's what you're seeing. And that's Willie Nelson, and I love it for him.
Well,
So
of course. I mean, like you say, it's the persona of Willie as much as it is the music.
It is. Now, the thing that I wanted to tell everybody about that is not related to music news, but kind of, is I'm going to ask Tim a question. And I want Tim to answer this honestly and the first thing that comes to his mind.
Okay.
I saw the rains down in
Africa.
So recently I went to visit my twin sister, and we may have spent the Saturday night hanging out, doing things that adults do, and we started playing this lyrics game. And the lyric was, I saw the rains down in Toto, Africa, right?
Yeah.
Brandy said, full chest out, 100%, dead on the money, Tim. You would have thought she knew this. I saw the rains down in Georgia. And I laughed so hard I fell off the bed. I fell off the bed. Off the bed, Tim. Yeah. And what she told me was in her brain, she thought I said the Reba song, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia.
Yeah.
That's what she thought I said. But in my eyes, so I was like, she definitely will know this. Everybody knows this. I went in hard. I was like, I called the rates down it. And first thing, just no pause, no nothing. She just screwed to be Georgia. And I can't not hear it anymore.
Well,
Best.
there are lots of songs that mention Georgia in the title. Georgia on My Mind, for example, to go back to Willie Nelson you was just talking to.
Yes, that is true.
But I will say that line is pretty iconic. I
will say, I think she knew. I think that she may have been under the influence and got things confused, but I can't let her live it down. And now she's famous on the podcast because she saw the rains down in Georgia. It wouldn't have been as funny, Tim, if you had paused, thought about it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there was any thought in her mind. No, she just said it so straight, like full chest. Like, this is 100%. She knows that's the answer. And that's what made it so funny. And I started laughing, and I was on the edge of her bed because we stayed in a hotel that night. And I fell off the bed laughing and hit my head off the wall. Anyway, guys, I'm coughing and you get scared because I'm laughing now. But yes.
My note to your sister would be try and get the lines correct purely because we don't want Joy falling off the bed and having an injury.
It's true. That did happen. All right, guys. So it is my episode. Now, it has been a minute since me and Tim have had a regular episode because we've had some guests and different things, and it's summer and all those things, right?
Yes.
So I was thinking, what do we want to talk about? This is an artist that has come up many times on the podcast. It's an artist almost everybody knows, but she's not one we have done an episode on. The artist is Cher.
Yay!
Now, I have recently went down a rabbit hole, and if you have not been down this rabbit hole, you are missing out, of Cher on her variety shows. I have never seen a more multi-talented person. She can dance, she can sing, she's funny. Tim, have you watched some of her variety shows and you know what I'm talking about? It's crazy to me how talented she is.
Yes, I am very familiar with her variety shows, and I'll tell you for why.
Why is that?
So she had these variety shows in the 60s and 70s. And like you say, it was all the stuff, singing, dancing, comedy bits, acting, all the things. The whole thing. Now, she did a bit on one of the Christmas shows where she sang Oh Holy Night. And as everybody knows, I'm a big fan of David Letterman and David Letterman's Late Show and Late Night.
This is true.
Every Christmas, they had pretty much the same episode where Jay Thomas will come on and tell a story about the Lone Ranger. Darlene Love will come on and sing Christmas, Please Come Home, Merry Christmas, Please Come Home. And then Paul Schaefer would do his impersonation of Cher singing Oh Holy Night. And having watched a number of these episodes, I thought, I'm going to have to find this because I want to see where it comes from. And of course, he's doing it in parody and he's going over the top.
Of course.
But yeah, she's there in she's got a muff thing in her hands. And she goes, oh, holy night. Perfect. So yes, I'm completely familiar with Cher variety shows.
Okay, so if you are not, to our audience members, just Google it. There's so many. My favorite, personally, one of my favorites is when she's with the Jackson 5 and they do Dancing Machine. And she does the full robot. And honestly, she does it just as well, if not better, than every member of the Jackson 5, including Michael. And you guys can come for me. I know that is possibly, I don't know, controversial, but she's really good. And there's a few other things where the show, like the different things they chose to do, like one of them, she was with the Osmonds. It's super awkward, Tim, and cringy, but she does such a good job at I don't know, just what she's doing that for her, it wasn't cringy. The rest of it was cringy, if that makes sense. So on to Cher. So she has my favorite quote of all time, where when her mother said that she should marry a rich man, she says, "Mother, I am a rich man."
Yes.
So that's where we start with Cher. I love Cher. Now, for those who don't know, And Charlie has a very distinct thought on her. He struggles with her vocal range. She is a counter alto. So what that means is she has, you guys have heard her, that's the deepest of the females' voices. But what's so interesting about her, she has a very wide range. And while she can hit those counter alto notes, she can also hit soprano and mezzo soprano notes in a very deep, rich sound, which is what we hear when we hear Cher.
Yeah.
So I thought Tim was going to say Cher. He didn't say Cher. So anyway, this is also counter altos are very meaningful and very used a lot in operatic singing. Mm-hmm. And so when you listen to her and how a lot of her songs sound, it's kind of like when you hear Meatloaf, there's a lot of almost operatic sounds to the way she sings. That is very similar because the counter outros are that's what they do. Yeah. They do extremes, I guess is what I'm getting at. And that's what you see a lot now in operas. So Cher should be in an opera. She hasn't yet that I'm aware of. I think she's like one thing off of being an EGOT, though. I think she doesn't have an Oscar. So let's get Cher an Oscar, everybody. How do we get her an Oscar? I know
because she's been in lots of films. She was in that film Mermaids.
She was in Mermaids. She was in Mamma Mia.
What's that film that she was in with the kid who had had a birth defect in his face?
She wasn't in Phantom of the Opera.
No, is it called Mask?
I don't know. The only other thing I could think of is Burlesque.
No, there was I haven't seen a lot of films, and I've seen this film.
Give it a gig, Tim says. I'm not. Give it a goog, Tim, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Because there's a really, really sad scene. So there's the kid in it. In the film, I think it's Cher's son, and he had like a birth defect on his face, and his face didn't look like a normal face.
Was it like Chaz Bono?
No. This is like a film from the 70s or the 80s.
Was it the Almond's son then?
I don't know, but there's a really, really sad scene.
We're doing a really bad job of telling everybody what you're thinking, Tim.
Yeah, but the kid in it had a map in his room, and he had little pins on it of all the places he wanted to go in the world. And I think because of his birth defect, he knew he wasn't going to live very long because of that. And then Cher comes in one day, and all the pins are taken out. And it's just like the saddest thing in the world.
Tim, I'm lost on this one. This will have to be a goog from Tim O'Sullivan right now. Hot off the presses, because I don't know what he's talking about.
It's Mask. It's a 1985 film.
She was married to Greg Allman, though, and had a son with him as well, right?
The film is based on the life and early death of Roy L. Rocky Dennis, a boy who had a genetic disorder. It's all in. I can't read that. Due to disfiguring cranial enlargements, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, see? I've seen that film.
Well, that's a first for me, Tim. I'll take your word for it. But she has been in a lot of films.
Yeah, it's very sad. That scene sticks with me in my head. It's a very sad moment in that film.
Fair enough. So Cher was born on May 20th, 1946. She's 78 years old, which is kind of crazy. Some people there are people out here referring to her as the goddess of pop. I've never heard that, but we'll take it. Mm-hmm. She is known as being a distinctive counteralto singing, which we've talked about. She rose to fame in 1965 as the one half of her duo, Sonny and Cher. Yep. For those who don't know, her husband, Sonny Bono, was in a very bad accident. He ran into a tree while skiing and passed away. They used to do a variety show together. I've seen the Sonny and Cher show many times. Mm-hmm. It was a favorite of my mother's. And then after that fact, she kept the variety show going after he passed. She rose to fame with her, Sonny and Cher rose to fame with their songs, Fake Bang, My Baby Don't Shoot Me Down, You Better Sit Down. And then throughout the 70s, she had many Billboard hits, which I'm not going to get into because that's what we're going to be discussing. And she is considered she is the female solo artist with the most number one hits in U.S. history at the time. Now, that was in the 70s and 80s. As of the 90s, we all know it's Mariah Carey has taken that. And It's probably been taken over by Taylor Swift now or something. I
Very
can't confirm
possibly.
that, but that sounds right. Now, for those who don't know, she did divorce Sonny in 1975, even before he passed away. She released successful disco albums and many other albums after that. She was married to Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers after Sonny and her divorce, and she has two kids: Chaz Bono, which she had with Sonny, and then Elijah Allman, which she had with Greg Allman.
Yes. And in fact, I have an Allman Brothers box set, which has several tracks which have Cher singing on it.
That does not surprise me. She was also many TV shows and Broadway. So she had her Broadway debut with Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, Jimmy Dean. There was a film adaptation. And then she was in that show Mermaids, which Tim was just her movie, I think. That was what spawned the number one hit, the Shoop Shoop song. It's in His Kiss, which we've all heard. And then, of course, she was in another thing called If These Walls Could Talk, which I don't want to get into because it's kind of controversial for our podcast. But if you want to Google it, Google it. And then, of course, I know of her in Burlesque, the movie, which was she was with Christina Aguilera. And then she was in Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, the second one, with all the ABBA songs. So there is kind of the history of Cher, very watered down. So what we're going to talk about now is just my favorite Cher songs.
There we are.
And that's it. All right. So probably my all-time favorite, the number one Cher song that I think exists, and I think if you haven't listened to it, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves.
Yes, that is a very early Cher song. I think it's probably 60s. And it was in that era of songs that had like the very much like the orchestral type backing to it.
Yeah.
But it is a classic song. It's certainly in the Cher catalog.
I would say it's either probably late 60s, early 70s. I don't know much about it, but it was her on her own. So it's not like I don't think she produced it with Bono or anything. But I mean, it's about a girl who's a young gypsy or traveling woman. I think gypsy is now a bad word. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. Don't come from the internet. I did not Google this or do my research. Traveling people, whatever they're called.
Let's say traveling people. You're fine with that.
Okay. That's what it is. And so it's about that. And it's about a young lady who has to deal with it. I have learned recently that this song was the song that knocked Maggie May by Rod Stewart off the number one chart.
Oh, wow.
Go, guys. I don't know why you need to know that, but I did learn that. But basically, this song is a girl who gets herself in trouble, possibly pregnant, so on and so forth. There you go, guys. No, what is interesting to me, Tim, and did you know this? There is a set of travelers that travel the East. So we do have a lot of travelers who are in West Virginia. You know that. And there's a whole settlement of them, and they did that TV show, right? But there's also ones that travel every Sunday up and down, every summer up and down the East Coast. And they stop into stores and stuff, and like they're known. And it's very interesting to me because, like, I guess I don't think about it. Did you know that, Tim? Like on the East Coast, there's a set of travelers that like everybody sees. They migrate through the summer.
No, I that's news to me. Nothing I've ever heard of.
It sounds very weird, but apparently it happens. I think there's a lot more travelers in the UK as well. But there you go, guys. All right, that is my favorite Cher song. Not that anybody asked, but let's pick another one. Let's pick. She has so many. How do I even pick, guys? Well, we'll just talk about it because actually, you know what? Have you heard her vision of Love Can Build a Bridge?
I have heard that. I've got it on a compilation album, yes.
How do you feel about it? Because, you know, it's written by Naomi Judd originally, and that's the version that I'm very familiar with, but I do know her version, and I'm on the fence about it.
Yeah, sometimes Cher does a definitive version like Shoop Shoop. Sometimes you ask yourself, why did you do that?
That's what this song is for me.
Well, as you know, I have a Cher. I don't know if this is in your songs, and I apologize if it is, but I have a Cher ABBA cover album where
Fernando was in there, but we'll leave it out.
Yeah, she does covers of all ABBA songs. It was officially sanctioned by Benny and Bjorn, and I think
really good.
Yeah, and a few of the tracks have Benny and Bjorn on them. And you listen to it, and it's fine. It's okay. But you sit back as you're listening to it, absorbing the Cher-ness, and you think, why did you do this?
Was it necessary? So Tim has said this to me many times, and I think about this a lot. He says that modern day technology is fixing problems that don't exist.
Yeah, for example, this is not Cher related.
But I'm going to bring it back to Cher when you're done.
I'm firmly of the opinion pay by phone is a solution looking for a problem, because it is not that hard to get your card out your pocket. Now, tap to pay, I can see why that's an innovation, because you haven't got to swipe, you haven't got to do a PIN, you haven't got to do a signature, or well, here in the United States, you don't really sign or do signatures anyway. It's beside the point. But you donk your card and you're done, and you walk away, and we're all good.
So on and so forth. Got it.
Paying with your phone is just a complete solution looking for a problem. However, guess who is doing this podcast who routinely uses pay by phone?
Tim O'Sullivan.
Correct.
See that. So back to what I was going to say, though. The reason this relates to Cher is Cher singing songs that didn't need a remake.
Yes, 100%.
Does that make sense, Tim? Like, it's the same kind of concept in my brain. It's fixing a problem that's not there.
Yes, because when I played that ABBA album downstairs and Hannah listened to it, she said, this is something that didn't need to happen.
Like, it's decent, and I like it. Like, I do like her version of Fernando specifically. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the rest. But it did lead into her being in Mamma Mia too. So I guess that came out of it, Tim. I don't know.
Well, there we are. I mean, or maybe it was all happening at the same time. I don't know.
I have no clue. Now, this is a remake of a song. I like the original, but I will say I like her version too. It is not in the realm of what we were just talking about. It is her version, Cher's version, of Walking in Memphis.
Yes. Now, this is a really good version, because the original, of course, is by Mark Cohn, who is a singer-songwriter. And I believe our friend Hog Paul Summerton mentioned Mark Cohn on his Soundtrack of Your Life episode. And he
definitely did.
Yeah, Mark Cohn is a very important musician to Hog Paul. Her version of this song almost got Mark Cohn mainstream appeal to some degree, because the original of Walking with Memphis, I believe, was a UK hit, and it was a hit here. But when Cher did it, it just exploded. And I know, to be fair to Cher's version, it is a good version. Yes.
So she had an album in mid-90s called It's a Man's World, very Cher-oriented. Mm-hmm. And she did a version of this. The reason I feel like this one was successful versus where we're like, the ABBA ones, while they're cool, they weren't necessary. It's a very soul song. Mark Cohen himself has a very distinct voice.
Yes.
I grew up listening to this song. If you put, like, you don't even have to, I could sing this song off the top of my head, Tim. Like, it's one of those songs for me. Like, I know it so distinctly well. And it requires somebody who has a very intricate voice, and she has that. And the soul and the richness just works. Whereas ABBA, at its core, is fun, it's amazing, it's great music, but it's pop. Mm-hmm. Whereas Cher has a little bit of more, I don't know if it's soul or just depth, but she does. That's just true of the matter, so it works for this. But I appreciate her version a lot. And she did win a Grammy for this one. And also Mark Cohen won a Grammy, so they both got Grammys for this song.
There we are. And I'm sure Cher's cover version didn't hurt Mark Cohen's bank balance at all.
Not at all. I'm sure she paid him lots of money to be able to do that. Now, controversial. This is a 90s hit that everybody knows. Some people have thoughts about it. Some people hate it. Some people think it changed pop forever, Tim. This is the song, the auto-tune favorite. Everybody knows, Believe.
Yeah. So, take it or leave it with this song. I mean, it is what it is. It's a 90s pop hit. It's a catchy song and all that kind of stuff. But let's talk about this.
In your club.
Let's talk about this auto-tune. So, late 80s, early 90s, probably early 90s, there was a plugin for DAWs called Antares Autotune. And the idea of the autotune software predominantly is for things like backing vocals. You record a load of backing vocals, and then you throw the autotune up and you turn the intensity up to like 3 out of 10, and it just pulls everyone in tune, and it sounds great. We recorded a demo with Guilty Party in the early 90s when this technology was almost brand new. and it's great, tightens it up really nice, and then they refine the technology a bit, and you could use it on a lead vocal. And if you use a bit pitchy is there? We'll say pitchy dog, isn't that what you say? Isn't that what the cool kids say? Your pitchy dog.
No, no one says that, but we'll let Tim say it.
No, the guy from Pop Idol or American Idol,
Tim,
Randy
that
Jackson.
was like 2014. You're like 15 years ago.
Yeah, but you're talking to the guy who was watching 80s wrestling and Charlie's Angels and stuff.
In Tim's realm of new things, yes.
Yeah,
the rest of our realm, maybe not.
So anyway, so if you're a bit pitchy, you could use that auto-tune plugin to tighten up your vocals. But somebody figured out that if you turn the intensity up to like 12 out of 10, it makes it sound like Cher in Believe. And it seemed to be like a turning point for that vocal style. Because before this, you never had that. But when that song came out, there was so many other people doing that. And you get people like T-Pain who've made a complete career out of that sound.
Well, and the crazy part is T-Pain ended up winning the Masked Singer because the man has a gorgeous voice, Tim. Have you heard him like when he's not using auto-tune?
Yeah.
The irony is he's freaking so talented, but he knows what sells. And that's just the truth of the matter. Good or bad, if you like a sellout or not, we're not going to get into that. But honestly, that's what he did, Tim.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a turning point for that vocal style. I really don't think there was an example of it prior to Cher's Believe.
Yes. So that is the general. Cher's Believe is known as the start of autotune. Now, is it really? Maybe not. There was probably a few people before that, but it's when it took a turn to be used regularly in pop music to create a sound in a way, because that's the whole point. Yeah. She could sing. It wasn't that she wasn't. It's that sound when she's going, if you believe in love, like that whole sound that has that echo. It was on purpose. It was used for reverb. It was used to make a, like, you know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah, it was not used for its intended purpose when they designed autotune, which was to tighten vocals up.
Yes.
It was used at a very high intensity to create a vocal effect.
Which makes sense for like a dance, mid-90s, late 90s dance hit, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's perfect. So I think intention, I don't know that for me, I think that Cher's intention was to make everybody using auto-tune mainstream. I think she was using it as a tool to get the sound of the song she wanted, and it just went from there.
Yes, absolutely. And it's fair to say the fabled ABBA cover album is Believe auto-tune-tastic all the way through.
Darn. Well, anyway, Cher, we're going to go to the most iconic, most overdone, most everybody sung it at least once in karaoke duet of all time. We're going to say I Got You, Babe by Sonny and Cher.
Yes, this is the classic Sonny and Cher song. And I believe in Beavis and Butthead, the movie, I think Cher sings it with Beavis and or Butthead or one of the two like that.
Yes, that does happen. But Tim, do you know who backs this? Who's the production crew, the musicians, all of this behind this song?
It's probably someone like the Wrecking Crew or Phil Spector or something.
It was the Wrecking Crew. There you go, Tim.
Which means,
and the production was Sonny Bono.
Yeah, and Carol Kay would have been playing bass, who is an amazing bass player who's all over all those hits.
Yes, exactly. So it's not shocking to anyone who knows about this time frame that I Got You, Babe is backed by the Wrecking Crew, and then the production was by Sonny Bono. Now, to be fair, Sonny did a lot of, I think, backing and producing behind a lot of their music when they first came out. Because before Cher went to her solo career, they were Sonny and Cher, and then they did their variety show, and it just made them even more popular as a couple. But I don't know, a more iconic, everybody has to sing it, da-da-da-da-da. And to confirm, Tim, Cher did rework the song with Beavis and Butthead, the Beavis and Butthead Experience album in 1993. So Cher herself was there with them. So there you go. And it was memorably covered by UB40 featuring Chrissy Hynde.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
So there's another version of it. And then they also reunited to sing the song after years after their divorce on the late night with David Letterman in 1987.
Yeah, November 13th, 1987. I just pulled it up. It was huge because they'd got divorced and I don't even think they'd spent any time in each other's company. And, you know, all kinds of stuff goes down on those late night shows. And yeah, and they reunited on the Late Show. Well, actually, it would have been Late Night with David Letterman because it would have been the NBC show. And
Of course, you know that, but continue.
Well, I enjoy. I always loved David Letterman's wacky humor, and I've covered this before. And I used to watch it when I lived in England. We used to, as I've mentioned before, they used to appear magically on my computer. And even before that,
Crazy how that happened.
When we had satellite TV, there used to be some like Dutch and German channels and stuff that used to carry it with the subtitles. I used to love it. Something about Dave's absurdist humor really appeals to me. Now, he went off the air in 2015, and I've always loved Dave, but then I've discovered that his company, Worldwide Pants, is posting official clips of his show up on YouTube. And also there's other people, unofficially putting stuff up too. So I subscribed to the channel and it's like, wow, this is all the stuff I love. And I watch 2 or 3 of those clips a day, and it's just...
Brings you the happiness.
Yeah, there's something about Dave's humor. It's like Alan Partridge, David Letterman, Douglas Adams, and Vic Reeves. All of them have the same kind of absurdist type humor. Each one of them is a slightly different fork, but they're all the same kind of idea.
Well, there you go, guys. Tim has taught. If you ever need to get Tim's attention long enough to kidnap him, put on a video of one of these comedians in front of his face when he's not expecting it, and he will stop for at least 3 seconds to go, aha! And then you could kidnap him. Am I wrong, Tim? Did I screw that up, or is it pretty on brand?
No, I think you're fine. Sort of early 90s Vickery's Big Night Out with the man with the stick. You might get that. I don't know.
I do, actually. So I love that. All right. Back to Cher and not kidnapping Tim. Please do not kidnap Tim. I do not endorse and or promote kidnapping in any way. All right. Unless it's in trash can and you take pictures of it around the world. Da, 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 da. Somebody out there will get that. That's been a listener for a while. All right. Now, this is another Sonny and Cher song, but it is my favorite, probably period, besides Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. This song is The Beat Goes On.
Yeah, not necessarily a mainstream Sonny and Cher hit that everybody would know.
Well, the reason I brought it up was the Wrecking Crew bassist, Carole King, is highlighted in this song in particular. So for those who don't know, the Wrecking Crew was also behind this song, Tim. And basically, they said this was a nothing song and no one was interested until Carole played the boy bass line, and then everybody was interested in it.
Well,
goes to what Tim was saying a minute ago.
Yeah, she's an amazing bass player and is responsible for so many hits. I mean, a bass player's bass player, really.
It really is. And the thing about it is when I think about the song, it makes sense because it really is kind of a very bare bones song. It's just a strong, the beat goes on, right, Tim? All you hear is a strong bass line through the whole thing.
Yep.
So without that, it really would have been a boring song because, to be honest, they're not even really singing in it, Tim. It's like speak singing, I guess. For lack of a better way of saying it. It's not like somebody's singing some Aretha Franklin up in here or something. So it makes sense that but as soon as you said that about her on the last one, I was like, oh, I have another song about that. All right. And Cher is one of those people that I just feel like she's a vampire. Do you feel like she's a vampire?
Yeah, because she stopped aging in about 1995.
Yeah. And if you look at her now and you look at her then, it really didn't change at all, Tim.
No.
Like it's not like she looks like she's had a bunch of work done either. It's like she just stopped aging at some point.
Yeah, she got to a point of aging and it's like, yeah, that's enough aging for me.
How? And what do we have to do to bottle it? I guess you just have to be Cher. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. We realize this, but.
Yeah, I mean, some people, have that kind of model good-looking genetic thing going on. And even as they get old and really old, they remain good-looking. Do you know who's like that?
Who's that?
Jackie Smith from Charlie's Angels. She's like almost 80 and she posts on Instagram. And yeah, you look at her hands and stuff and you can see that she's an older person, but she's still model good-looking at like 80-odd. And I think, I just think some people have that.
Well, and I have heard that different ethnicities can like be like, you know what I mean? That if they wrinkle differently. And Cher has some like I don't know if it's like Middle Eastern or something background. Do you know what I mean, Tim?
Hmm.
So that could be a fact. I mean, look at the beautiful hair. But yes, I'm convinced she's a vampire.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I don't think she'll ever die. I think she just could be a vampire till the end of time.
Yeah, and like Diana Ross is like that as well. Diana
Yeah,
Ross had a comeback in '92 and hasn't really aged since then.
it's so weird. And you want to be like, oh, they have money, but like not everybody who has money can do that. Look at I don't know. I'm trying to
Well,
think of somebody.
look at Phil Collins.
Call that's one of the ones I thought of.
Yeah,
That,
I mean, Phil Collins was never really a super handsome chap. I mean,
yeah.
he was bald in the '80s, and I mean, you look at attractive men, and he's not in your list of attractive men. But you know, Father Time hasn't been kind to him, and he's in his '70s, mid to late '70s at this point. And like you say, you look at your Sammy Hagars, and you look at your Paul McCartneys, and all those kind of people who so have the same kind of money that Phil does,
hmm
and he is looks like a really, really old man, and he can barely stand up.
Well, a really good example of that money doesn't always have an effect is Kenny Rogers before he passed. Remember, he had so much work done on his face, and sadly, he kind of like botched his face towards the end. Do you remember that, Tim?
Yeah, but you have someone like Manilow, Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
He's had work done on his face. It looks a little, it looks like he's had
I mean,
work
you
done, shall
know,
we
it's
say?
he's had work done.
Yeah, but
Yes.
he's an older chap, and he still looks. He doesn't look terrible. You know, that's the point I'm trying to make. He
I've
doesn't look
always said if
terrible.
I had money, Tim, to do what I want, I'd do it too. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's
if it makes him happy, it's his business and what have you. But I mean, it's not. It doesn't look ridiculous, if you know what I
Mhm.
mean.
So money can't always buy you the face. And Cher somehow was a vampire since like 1989.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Well, Cher, the vampire. We're going to do another one that plays right into you being a vampire. It's about time. It's about turning it back. It's if I could turn back time.
Now, this is a great track. It has Cher's son playing guitar
Oh, wow.
on
Does
it.
it?
Yeah, and he played in her touring band at the time.
No, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and it famously has the video on that Navy ship, and I forget the
Yep.
name of the Navy ship, but they approached the Ministry of well, it was not Ministry of Defense actually. That's England
Department.
Department of Defense. There you go. I got confused for a second. Yeah, Department of Defense.
I know what you meant.
And they got permission to film on this boat. And it's very common that a film company would want to film on military equipment, and yeah, there's a procedure and a price for that. So they film on this boat, and it's full
Yep.
of sailors. And she's suggestively sitting astride of a gun turret, and
Wearing very small clothing.
yeah, it's like this. She's wearing basically nothing with like
And she's tattooed.
yeah, and it's apparently it made the Department of Defense rethink filming permits going forward, and I don't think they've allowed pop musicians to borrow their equipment since.
So here's the kind of play-by-play. So I guess it was directed by Marty Colliner. It was shot aboard the battleship USS Missouri, which it's for the Navy, which is part of the Department of Defense, which is what Tim was talking about. She did wear a leather thong, which revealed tattoos, and it was straddling a cannon.
Yeah.
The Navy and many other groups and things and all that stuff deemed it as offensive and controversial. And MTV was forced to air the video after the watershed hour, 9 p.m.
There we are.
There you go, guys. So you've never seen the If I Could Turn Back Time video. Well, that's one thing that my mom has always said. And I find it very funny when people get up in arms about like Miley Cyrus wearing something or doing something. My mom was like, Cher did that years ago.
Yeah.
She always used to say, Madonna, everybody talks about Madonna, but honestly, Cher was more controversial at her core when it comes to her clothing than Madonna ever was.
Yeah, and maybe this is an age thing. I don't know. But these days, you see like a Miley Cyrus, and she's like naked on stage or flashing people or whatever like that. My first thing I think to myself is like, put your clothes back on, for goodness sake. But maybe that's just me being old. I don't know. But you say it's got to the point where everyone's done everything, and it's
Yeah, but my mom is like, when they talk about like the clothing choices and stuff, if you guys have ever went back and shared share if you go back and you see some of Cher's clothing choices, she was pretty controversial, Tim.
Yeah,
before her time.
certainly back in the day, and now if someone was wearing what she was wearing in a Turn Back Time video, it wouldn't even bat an eyelid because we're so desensitized to it. But at the time, and this is 90s. It was seen as very controversial. As you said, even to the point where MTV had to play the video after 9 p.m. or midnight or something.
I mean, yeah, it said after 9 p.m., which is the watershed hour. What's it in the UK? How does that work? Do they have a watershed hour?
Yeah, well, certainly when I was last there, it was 9 p.m. And as I said, on regular network TV after 9 p.m., it's like HBO and anything goes.
Fair enough. All right, so back to Miss Cher. This is kind of one of her very early hits. It's kind of one of the definitive hits. It's known for having a flamenco type guitar, a gypsy violin, and a Russian sounding interlude. It is Bang Bang, My Baby Shot Me Down.
Yeah, very early Cher hit. Again, I think if you was to ask a person in the street to name some Cher songs, that probably wouldn't be one that they would recognize.
I don't think so. Ironically, I do find it funny. The album is called The Sunny Side of Cher. No one thought that was funny, but me. Okay. Well, anyway.
Well, I mean, it was probably very deliberate.
It was written by her husband, so yes, it was.
Of course.
And it included the Shoop Shoop song, which was for that movie Mermaid, which Tim was talking about. It was actually produced, though, by John Bon Jovi. I didn't know that.
Interesting.
And he does backing vocals with Michael Bolton on this album.
There we are. Michael Bolton, of me listening to a Michael Bolton album in the car the other day, and Hannah wanted to turn it off.
Yeah, I commented and said this would be what Charlie would do to me, too.
Well, it was great. It was a great Michael Bolton album, and it was like with a symphony orchestra. And it's like, you've never heard Steel Bars until you've heard it with a symphony orchestra.
All right, well. I mean, my problem is I like that, but only for like one song. I don't think I could do the whole album, Tim.
Yeah, I got 4 songs into it, and she's like, can we listen to something else, please?
Yes, for the love of my sanity, Tim. But I commented on it. I was like, yeah, that looks like something Charlie would do to me, too. And she just put the laughing face on it. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah. Because, see, Charlie is one of those people that once he's into it, he's into it. But I'm like, I just need, after like 2 songs, to move along. I don't know. All right, guys. Back to Cher. Now, she's done like a million covers and things of that nature. But this is a random song that I don't know anybody knows. Tim probably knows it. I love this song. It is actually known for its kind of like weird squealing guitars. It's Mama Was a Rock and Roll Singer, and Papa used to write all her songs. Have you ever heard this song, Tim?
I have heard it, yes.
So it was the moment that Sonny and Cher's marriage, I think, was on the rocks. And it was a reference to that. But have you heard of, like, I don't know how much it is. There's a very much climax in the song, and it's basically like a cornucopia of squealing guitars, but I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish. I don't know. That's a very weird guitar choice for me. How do you feel about it, Tim?
Well, what year did it come out?
74.
Yeah, so I mean, you still, you see a tail end of your Jimi Hendrix era. It's that kind of thing. Jefferson Airplane, that kind of style of music, I suppose.
What a very in-depth revelation. He's like, they all had squealing guitars, but they enjoy you ever thinking it.
I mean, also you had Led Zeppelin at that point. It's that style of guitar playing.
Fair enough. All right. Well, this is kind of an early. The one thing about Cher, though, Tim, is she did have a lot of hits in the 90s, even probably more than the 80s. In some ways.
Yeah, I think the 90s she had a sort of a resurgence to some degree.
She really did. So the song I'm going to talk about is off the same studio album as Believe, which Believe was a self-titled album, and this is Strong Enough.
Yes. Now, I'm very familiar with this song. I wouldn't call it a power ballad. It's a
disco tune.
It's like a power disco ballad song.
Yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. Because, I mean, it's almost like RSPCT, or maybe like I Will Survive. It's got that kind of like I am strong enough, you know what I mean? And it's a disco tune, though. If I've ever heard a disco tune, I would say this is a disco song. Like you
Yeah.
could take that song and put it in the 70s and believe it came out then.
Yeah, I mean, this is a song that was played a lot when I was playing in Guilty Party in the mid to late 90s, and we was playing like the Beer Keller in Bracknell. I'm sure our US and international listeners know exactly where that is, and other places where DJs and clubs that we were playing. This was a song that I was hearing a lot.
Now, here's a question, Tim. Have you ever seen the music video? It's
No,
weird.
I've never seen it.
Okay, so in this video, it was produced by British director Nigel Dick. I don't know much about him, but we're talking 1999. Cher is a computer virus, and her role is an advisor who tells a bad boyfriend the reasons why his girlfriend will leave him. So there's like a party, there's two women, there's two robbers, and like gothic people playing instruments. It's the weirdest music video you've ever seen, Tim.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it. I'm going to have to check that out now.
I kind of really want everybody who listens to this podcast to go watch it because I watched it earlier and I don't know that I understand it. I don't know that I get it. Maybe British people will, maybe because he's British and I don't know. If you guys get it, go for it. But I will say this to me looks like a song that you could have taken that was very popular in the 90s in the dance scene, but you could have easily put it in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, there's some keyboardy stuff that takes it out of the 70s era, but with 70s production, absolutely, it could have been a 70s song.
Well, there you go, guys. All right. Well, let's think. I'm going to pick one that I don't know how many people will know this. I'm hoping Tim does. It's a folk song. It's called Dark Lady. Are you familiar with this song, Tim?
No, this is not one that I'm familiar with.
So it's a folk song that was recorded by Cher. It's on her 11th studio album and was wrote by, and I don't know who this is, and Tim will probably be like, how do you not know who this is, Joy? This is blah, blah, blah. But anyway, Johnny Robert Diller? I don't know who that is. And it was released in 1974. And basically, the song was written, composed by the Ventures keyboard Johnny Driller, who was the producer. And he said, I went in to this office, played them a couple of songs. One of them Cher liked, she recorded it. Next thing you know, she's performing it in Japan. That's what they said about it. And basically the rest is history. But there's two versions of the video. There's a version that aired on the Sonny and Cher show. And then there's also, in the performance, Cher was dressed in all black and she has like a veil. It's kind of a famous Sonny and Cher thing. Mm-hmm. And then in the second one, there's like an animated cartoon that does like a whole story because it's like a folk song. And I mean, there is also like a remake of it. And the reason I know it is there was a remake where they did Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves and all these songs with it because it's around that same kind of folksy time for her. And I think she also performed it a lot in her Do You Believe tour is what I've heard. But basically in the video, it's another traveler in New Orleans who has a history of sleeping with her clients. Spoiler alert, everybody. And the rest goes from there.
There we go.
But it's a very folksy, gypsy, tramps, and thieves time for her, I guess.
There we are.
I'm surprised you haven't heard that song, Tim.
So maybe it's one if I've heard it, I'll be like, oh, it's that one. But certainly from the title, it doesn't quite have the recognition.
Well, she's one of those artists that I feel like she did a lot of hits so close together, but she doesn't have like a lot of huge like overall hits. Does that make sense, Tim? Like,
yeah.
All right, let me go back to my list, guys. I closed out. Sorry, everybody. Also, my favorite thing about Cher is her ongoing feuds with different people.
Yeah, she's almost 80 years old and she's still feuding with people.
Her and Elton John and her and Madonna hate each other, apparently. She hates Madonna, like hates her. And that makes me laugh. All right. So the next song I'm going to do is her version. And there's a remake where she sings it. There's a remake where she sings it with Tina Turner. And it is Proud Mary.
Yeah. So famously a song that Tina Turner covered. You know, she's covered it a number of times on different through the eras. But of course, there was the famous version she did at the beginning of her career. But yeah, Cher and her, or Cher by herself, very interesting.
Well, that makes sense. Well, and the irony is like we all know this was a CCR song to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but if you go Google and you look, there's quite a few versions. And I've also seen a version where Cher, Tina, and Elton John sing together, which I thought was very interesting. I mean, Proud Mary is like such a popular song. Everybody's done a version of it. Like every person who's ever sang karaoke at this point. Like, honestly, Tim, there's nobody out there who has sang Proud Mary before. But her version I like because I think that when she sings it with Tina, there's a nice harmony because she has a very nice kind of that counteralto lower register that Tina does have. Now, Tina does have a rough voice, but she's able to sing like a higher registry. And I feel like them together is really nice. I like their version together more than Cher's version by herself because I still think that goes back to what Tim was saying. It's fixing a problem that didn't need fixing.
Yes.
Like no one really needed that because it was a good song and it's been done like 3 times now.
Yeah.
By everyone and their cousin. And yeah. So not the last one. The next song I'm going to talk about is from the movie Mermaids. Did you watch that movie, Tim?
I have actually seen that film. Yes.
What is it about?
I'm not entirely sure, but I remember that Cher was the mother and she used to make a lot of food on cocktail sticks.
Oh, like that you put like the olive on the martini type thing?
Yeah, so like you go to back in the 80s when you went to a party, you'd have like cocktail sticks and you'd have a piece of cheese and a pineapple.
Yeah,
or you'd put them in sandwiches and you'd cut them up so it'd be like a little sandwich on a stick.
Yeah, you got like a club sandwich.
Yeah, and in the film Mermaids, Cher as the mother makes a lot of that for food for the family.
Well, I find it very interesting that that's all you remember.
To be honest, that's the only part I remember.
What a great movie, everybody. Anyway, so in 1999, she released the song, the Shoop Shoop song, parentheses, It's in His Kiss, on parentheses.
Yeah, the original is just called It's in His Kiss. The Shoop Shoop song is a Cher innovation.
Yes. So the weird thing about it, though, is I distinctly remember my dad and mom talking about they liked this song when I was younger. But my dad used to always be like, it's not. It's in their eyes. Like that's like my dad would argue with the premise of the song. I distinctly remember that being a thing. Like no one else cares, but my parents did. Now, this is probably the song that I feel like everybody knows from Cher.
Yeah, this was a huge hit. When this came out, it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. And then, of course, you had the film tie-in as well.
Yep. And it's a remake. Apparently, it was originally offered to the Shirelles, which was like the premier, girl group in the 60s. They turned it down. And then it was recorded by Mary Clayton. And it's recorded as one of her songs. And so, but yeah, like Tim said, the Shoop Shoop part is Cher's little additive to it, but it was originally written in 1963, recorded by Mary Clayton, and was composed and written by Rudy Clark, which I'm not sure who that is, but I'll give him credit.
Yeah, and of course, Mary Clayton famously is the one who sang backing vocals with the Rolling Stones on "Gimme Shelter."
Yes, which Tim brought up when we did that episode. I don't know why that song came up. Well, you definitely talked about it.
It was on the Knight Rider episode.
Voice. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. All right, Tim, how many more songs do we have time for?
I would say do 2 more.
2 more Cher songs, everybody. All right. There's plenty that we could do. Now, I'm just going to do this one because it's probably one that was released later, and I feel like a lot of people don't know it. But I actually like this song. It was in 2013, and it was from her last album, and the song is Woman's World. So it's very poppy sounding, and it's very Cher in the 90s to 2000s Believe-esque, right? There is a little bit of auto-tune in it, but I do like the chorus where it's like, tell the truth, this is a woman's world. Tell the truth, this is a woman's world. It's a play on, the old song about it's a
man's world.
Yes, that's what it's a play on. So if you have not heard that song, I think everybody should go listen to it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, some of those tracks of that era do get overlooked, especially because, like, Believe is your banner track.
Yeah, and Believe and Strong Enough were huge, huge, huge hits.
Yes.
Now, for those who haven't actually done it, I absolutely adore the Cher Kennedy Center honors. I've said that like what 37 times on this podcast, Tim. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Give it a Google. So we're going to talk about early 90s Cher. This was a medium hit. I feel like Tim's definitely probably heard this song. And this is Save Up All of Your Tears by Cher. Are you familiar with this, Tim?
Do you know, I think this one must have passed me by. I mean, I would probably know it if I heard it, but as a title, it doesn't have the recognition for me.
Well, it was early 90s, which that was the Love Hurts album. And so she had a few hits that came off of this. So it could have been overshadowed. And to be fair, how popular was Cher in the UK? I really don't know. Was she transcendent?
Yeah, she was moderately popular. She had a hit with that song Just Like Jesse James.
Yeah.
But I think that was probably late 80s, probably. But like when I said, when you got into 90s Cher, Believe and all Strong Enough, that was huge. And of course, the classic I Got You Babes and stuff. But
All she did was Sonny, yeah.
yeah, I mean, probably not a massive star, but certainly in the 90s, she, much like Diana Ross, she had like a resurgence.
Well, I find it very interesting about Cher is she doesn't have that many like huge hits, right, Tim? She has a set with Sonny and Cher. She has a set in the 80s, and then she has a set in the mid 90s, early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And weirdly enough, she did a great job at putting up hits what would be considered way after her time in the late 90s and 2000s. She was able to kind of push, like Tim said, especially in the UK when everybody was singing in the club. It was very on that brand.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a weird way to explain that. But if you get it, you get it.
Yes, I know exactly. I know I've only ever been to a nightclub willingly once. Actually, it wasn't even willingly. But I've been in many, many, many nightclubs to play bands in there and like the music before and after, and it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's what I was going for. Anyway, she did a great job of understanding that and being able to tap into it. But overall, she doesn't have that many hits consecutively. What's so interesting and what I want people to take away from this is go watch her variety show, though. She is so talented. Yes, she only had so many hits, but like if you hear her sing like covers of every band ever, right, Tim?
Yeah.
And she dances and she's funny and like she does like she has a way of like putting on a show. And that showmanship is so good that I almost feel for most people who like, and even my mom, she loved the Sonny and Cher show growing up. I almost feel like the show was almost bigger than her music for her in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the music kind of hit a resurgence in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
My takeaway from this is if you haven't seen Dancing Machine with Cher, go watch it. We'll post it. Tim, make a note. Well, that'll be what we post on the Facebook. We can post it on Facebook next time.
Okay, I will definitely do that.
Because I still think she's underrated when it comes to her dance skills. Also, she's a vampire, so maybe not. I don't know. Do vampires have dance skills, Tim? Is that part of the MO?
I mean, in True Blood, they did.
No. I mean, if you had dance skills when you were a human, I don't feel like you would lose them just because you become a vampire, right?
No, actually, did you ever watch True Blood?
Yes, I did. I watched the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, it lost the plot by about season 4. It's fairies and this, that, the other, and everyone was a wolf, and everyone was this, and Suki was a fairy, and it was a mess. But the first 2 or 3 seasons were good.
I loved the first 2 seasons, and then it kind of lost track for me. But I'm very familiar with the characters and the story plot. But it does prove what I'm saying, Tim, is if you have these characteristics before you're a vampire, if you get bitten, I don't think you lose the characteristics. You just get all the vampire stuff.
Exactly.
Like being able to run really fast and beat people up and stuff.
And as I've said many times before, I'm not human, Suki. I'm vampire.
But here's my question, Tim. If you were going to be like, if you could think of yourself in a fantasy world, like some type of like thing, and it's like people are wizards, there's centaurs, there's vampires, there's werewolves, all that kind of stuff. What do you think you would be?
It's hard to say because I don't really connect with those fantasy worlds at all.
Use your brain, Tim. Come on. Think.
I'd like to be the guy in True Blood who could shapeshift into different things.
I don't know what kind of... Okay, so Tim's a shapeshifter.
Yeah, I think so.
See, I feel like I give witch vibes. I definitely think I'd be some type of witch wizard. warlock.
And I think actually, and I'd also be able to levitate. Because as I've said many times before, growing up, I had incredibly vivid levitation dreams.
That's fair. If I could have any superpower, Tim, regardless of fantasy world or whatever, I've said many times I'd like to be able to go invisible. I feel like if you could go invisible, it would just open up, well, it would literally open every door.
Well, the problem is if you was invisible, you would out of pure curiosity end up in situations you probably don't want to be in.
Oh, yeah.
And you would find things out that you don't want to know, and your entire vision of the world would be different.
Yeah, that's true. Tim's right, guys. Tim's right. But I still think I want it. I'm going to take the risk. All right. Well, now that we've talked about Cher and mythical things, what would you like to leave the people with, Tim?
Well, I'm going to leave the people tonight. Of course, be kind to everyone you meet. But this is a thought I had this week, and this is maybe a discussion point for another time, but I'm going to leave the listeners with this thought. How is it they allowed the brand of MTV to disappear? How did they allow that to happen? And I understand YouTube and the way that media is consumed and music is consumed is different now. But that brand was so incredibly strong.
Because they could have repurposed it in a different way.
How did they let it completely disappear? Because now it's just reality show trash. Why can't there be a MTV channel that plays classic concerts or replays stuff from the 80s or modern music or whatever variation of you want? How did they let that go?
Video killed the radio star, I guess. What killed the video star?
Well, the internet killed the. Well, no.
Can we do an internet killed the video star?
I don't know, but this is just a thought. This is just a thought for our listeners. How could you have something where the brand is so strong and iconic for music, which everybody loves, yet you completely destroyed it? How did they let that happen?
I don't know, but if anybody has any ideas, comment on the Facebooks or the threads or any of it and give us your ideas.
Yeah, I was watching a clip the other day that came from MTV, and I thought to myself, there's no outlet for this anymore. There's no interview program like this. There's nobody having this sort of thing going on. How did they let that go?
I don't know, Tim. We got to make some calls. We'll figure it out later.
There we are. That's all I have for this week. It's a thought point for our listeners.
All right. Well, and with that, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to